Good morning, men and women of grade 7 and 8. I'm a little bit behind in posting these, but only a couple of days, so I'm going to make sure we have these so you can study in case you're having any questions for the weekend. So we're solving equations. We're doing algebra, and you should love algebra. At least you should love the first part of this algebra because it is so incredibly logical. It is one step after another, and the steps are the same each time. The operations might be different, but the steps are the same. So this is when we can truly build a little confidence in your math game. Anyhow, the first thing we have to know is what a variable is. And we talked about it in class today. But a variable is any letter that you use in mathematics to take the place of an unknown value. Any letter represents an unknown value. So for instance, if I was to give you a question and I would say a variable like x plus 3 equals 10, what I'm really saying is an unknown number, which we're just going to call x, that I'm going to add 3 to equals 10. Now in your mind, you know what, or should know what, plus 3 equals 10. We know it's going to be 7, but there's a way of solving it algebraically because the questions get much, much bigger. The other concept you need to learn before we can move on is the whole idea of what it means to isolate something. So if I had an x over here and numbers equals 10, and I want to isolate that x, it means to leave it absolutely by itself. Now the challenge of leaving that by itself is I got to get rid of that 3. It has to leave the left-hand side of the equation, so x is isolated. It means by itself, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. If you look over to the right-hand side here, it has the steps, and we sang the song, and I want you saying the steps all the time in your head, and I want you singing the song all the time in your head. No matter how silly it sounds, you'll get it, and you'll get it next year, and you'll get it the year after. So, be a little silly. It will really help you in the long run. Anyhow, your steps are isolate the variable by performing the opposite operation to both sides. Number 2, solve for the variable. Number 3, check your answer using left side versus right side. When you're doing that, you're just going to substitute the answer that you got in your equation for the variable in your check. And lastly, when you get done your check, if your left side is equal to the right side, your answer was correct. I guess one more thing we have to know before we can go any further is what does opposite operation mean? And some of us knew right off the bat today, and some of us didn't. So we're going to just quickly write it down here, and you can write it in your notes if you want. But the idea of addition, there is an opposite operation, mathematical operation, that will do the opposite of what addition will do. Addition increases your amount by, or increases your value by a certain amount. But to say the opposite of addition, we know is subtraction. In the same way that the opposite of subtraction is addition. You can add, subtract, they're opposites. Now another one we do, or there's 4 operations, is multiplication. Now, process of elimination, if you don't know what the opposite of multiplication is, it's not addition, it's not subtraction. So what do we have left? Well, obviously the only one we have left is division. So if I was to do 3 times something, 3 times 5 is 15, the only way of getting the opposite of that is to divide it by 5 to get it back to 3. So multiplication and division are opposite, and vice versa, division and multiplication are opposite. So those are your opposite operations. When you see something like x plus 3, you'll say to yourself, I'm adding 3 here. In order to get rid of that, I have to subtract 3. And that's how we're going to solve these questions. So I'm going to do one of each. These are all one steps. We'll do them with the check. And you all did very, very well in class today with them. And your homework was right, but I want to make sure we have this so in case you need to go back to it later on. So here we go. X plus 3 equals 10. We do the opposite operation. So we do not change the order, and that is so very important not to change the order. We cross them out. You might not understand why, but when the questions get larger, it will be a little bit helpful for you to cross those out, especially with division. Left side, right side. No, when we do our left side and our right side, we have to go back to the original question. This was my original left-hand side, x plus 3. My original right-hand side of my question was 10. So that's what it means to go back to your original question. Now over here, it says substitute the answer that you got, and my answer for my question was 7, into your variable, where here. So in my next line, I'm going to put 7 plus 3, and I'm going to put the 7 in brackets. Brackets indicate a substitution has been made. So later on when you're checking stuff, you'll know exactly what number you put in. Obviously 7 plus 3 is 10. You check that, you check that. You should be really happy because now you've done your first question. It looks great, and it's all right. All right, I'm going to set up the next couple questions, and I'll be right back. All right, we're back at her. Here's our next question. You can see in the question, it is b minus 10, or b subtract 10 equals 22. So what's going on in this operation is there's subtraction going on, and the only way to get rid of the subtraction that is to add. So again, it's so important that you do not change the order of the question. So I will still write it b minus 10 because that's how it started. But how do I get rid of minus 10? You add 10. And you add 10 to both sides. It's so important that you do it to both sides. Cross those out because they are now gone. The only thing left on the left-hand side is a b. 22 plus 10 is 32. It looks beautiful, it's nice and neat, but we're not done because we have to check. Remember that we check by going to the original question, way up here. The original left-hand side was b minus 10, and the original right-hand side was 22. To finish our check, we substitute whatever answer we got, which was 32, into here. Remember, we show brackets. This shows our substitution. Minus 10, 32 minus 10 is 22. I look over there, I look over there, and the checks are both the same, therefore our answer is right. If the left side equals your right side, your answer was correct. All right, we're going to speed along and do the next couple. This one you look at and oh, there's a 7 and an M right close to each other. I wonder what that means. And well, you know what subtraction looks like and you know what addition looks like, and that's not either of them. So basically what you're stuck with is I have multiplication and division to guess between. And we've been taught that a number right outside of a bracket means multiplication. It's very, very similar here. What that means is you're multiplying that by 7. Now remember that the opposite of multiplication is division. So what we have to do is divide both sides so we can isolate that m. We want m by itself. So whatever's over there with the m, we want gone. We want over on the other side. So I'm going to have to divide by 7 to make that happen. Now, some people would write it 7m divided by 7, but this way I like so much better. And it's such nice, neat math work. You just put a line and create a fraction with it, but you know that fraction truly is just a division line, and it still means division. And 7 divided by 7 crosses each other out. Really, 7 divided by 7 is 1m, which is exactly what's there, 1m. So that's how that works. M is still sitting there. 70 divided by 7 is 10. The answer's done, except we still need to check. Please remember when you're doing this that you have to go back to the original question, and my original question was 7m. My original question on the right-hand side was 70. Take your answer that you got, 10, substitute it for the variable down here. We show substitution by brackets. 7 times 10 is 70. That one and that one right on. And our last one today, if you look at that, that's division. We just talked about that where you have a variable over top of a number. That's division. How are we going to solve a division question? We have to multiply. We have to do the opposite operation. First thing to remember is do not change the order, so you're still going to write that t over 5. But what can I multiply that by that will allow it to cross out? And it's whatever number is associated with the variable. So I'm going to multiply this by 5. If I multiply one side by 5, I do it to the other side by 5. It's very important that you don't forget that. These cross each other out. All you're left with then is t on this side. And 2.5 times 5, 12.5. And when you do that, you say, oh, that looks really, really good, but I have not checked. So you do your left side, right side. My original left side was t over 5. My original right hand side was 2.5. Now, we substitute our answer for the variable, showing substitution by putting it in brackets. Divided by 5. Using your calculator, when we do that, we will get the answer of 2.5. That side equals that side. And we are fini. Alright guys, now the only thing else I have is a couple questions that might look a little different. And if it looks a little different, it's not a big deal at all. In the left-hand question here, the one in green, you can see that it says 3 plus k equals 17. And we've got the number before the variable. And there's actually nothing here in front of the number, so that might confuse some people. Guys, don't panic. Just think through it logically. What is going on there? Is that positive 3? Is that negative 3? And of course it's going to be a positive 3. If I asked you how old you are and you'd say you're 13 years old, no one's ever going to say, oh, is that negative 13? No, no. Any number, when there's not specified and there's nothing in front of it, is positive. Now the question is, how do I get rid of positive? How do I get rid of 3 to isolate for k? The only way that you can come up with is to subtract it. So you write it in the same order, 3 plus k. Now I'm going to subtract it in order to get it out of here. Equals 17 minus 3, because we're subtracting both sides. Be sure not to change the order of your question. That is so important when we start doing two-step questions, which is tomorrow. Anyhow, 17 minus 3 is 14. Now we do our little check. Left side, right side. Our original left-hand side was 3 plus k. Our original right-hand side was 17. Remember, we check by substituting the answer for the variable. Our answer was 14. We show substitution by using brackets. A nice, neat math work. And 3 plus 14 is 17. Boom, boom, Bob's your uncle. And here's our last one. It's a multiplication question, 2f. That means multiplication, and we're going to solve it by division. But oh my goodness, the variables are on the right-hand side. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Your goal is to isolate the variable. So we're just going to leave that f there and bring the 2 over. If you were to say, you know, my name is Sam, you can also say Sam is my name. It doesn't matter where you put it as long as we isolate for it. So I like to start this question kind of at the equal signs just so I remember what I'm doing. 2f, the only way to get rid of that 2 to isolate for f is to divide by 2, because the opposite operation of multiplication is division. If I divide by 2 over there, I'm going to divide by 2 over there. The 2's here cross out, so I'm left with f over on the right-hand side, and 10 divided by 2 on the left-hand side equals 5. Do my left side and my right side. I go my original question. That was my original. I show substitution. Substitute this answer into the variable. 10 equals 10. All it takes is a ton of practice, guys, and you will be rocking and rolling with these in no time. Make sure you know how to do them, because tomorrow or the next day we're going to get into two-step questions. Good luck.